Hello friends, greetings of the day. This is Niladri Mahapatra and today we'll talk about a sprint planning meeting and how we will do it in Rally, that is currently known as CA Technologies or CA Agile Central. We have covered a couple of videos on sprint planning meetings. This is the third video on this sprint planning meeting. Earlier we already have talked about the details, insight, and what exactly the sprint planning meeting is, and before that we had made one videos on sprint planning meeting for Jira. This particular episode we are making to understand how we'll be doing a sprint planning meeting in Rally. Okay, so quickly have some assumptions. Let's assume we already have our sprint duration decided. That's a 2 week of sprint, and for this particular video we are taking an example of a sprint duration that is starting on 30th of August and ending on 12th of September. So it's a 10-day sprint, 2 weeks, starting on Wednesday, ending on Tuesday. So if you look into this calendar, you will be able to see where exactly the sprint duration falls in. For this particular sprint, we are giving a name, Sprint 2. So earlier we had made some example where we used sprint 1. Now we'll be doing sprint 2, and for the capacity side we have some team members already planned and we calculated the capacity. If you wants to know about how we reach to this capacity, please go through the another video we have in our Agile Digest channel on understanding a capacity planning and how you do a capacity planning within Rally, that you will be able to find out, and that if that is helpful for you. Okay, so for this particular video we see the final capacity for these many team members we have, and these are their final capacity we have. So for an example, Alexa 46.50 and Amit has 46 hours, Tanushree has 50 hours. So that's how we have calculated based on our capacity planning. Let's quickly jump into Rally and see how we'll be able to configure the same thing, and then we'll proceed to do our sprint planning. And before that, there will be one more assumption. We are just assuming that we have a groomed backlog where all the stories are in groomed state. If you want to know how we groom story, there will be another video you can watch in YouTube within Agile Digest channel. You will find understanding backlog grooming or user story grooming, and there is another area that we are taking an assumption on, that's a definition of ready. We are assuming that we already have a definition of ready that we will be using at the time of committing our user story. Okay, let's jump into Rally. This is Rally. We have the backlog. This what you are currently seeing, this is your product backlog, and the schedule state we have is a backlog, defined, then in progress, then completed and accepted. Whatever the stories you are seeing in defined, we are giving that state to any stories. Those are defined, in the sense groomed, and have an estimated story point. So if you look into all the defined state, those are already have a story points that we got from our story point estimation through planning poker. And now will be the first step we'll be doing is creating our sprint. So in Rally you can actually plan your time boxes under plan. If you click on time boxes, you can create your own iteration. So sprint 1 was created. Now we need to create a new sprint, that's sprint 2. So what we'll be doing is we'll give a name, and we'll be creating on add with details. We'll give couple of details. Yes, so we have the sprint 2 here. We have the start date, we have the end date. I am not giving any planned velocity at this point of time because we don't had enough sprints in our history to calculate predictable velocity. So I am leaving it there, and all your sprint that you are creating is have 3 different state. When you are doing planning, your sprint will be in planning state. When you are committed, means you have started your sprint, you will be moving it in committed, and once the sprint is closed you can say is accepted. So for this example purpose, initially I am having that state as planning, and I will go to save and close. Is little down here, I'll click on save and close. So you'll see the sprint 2 is already here, and there is task estimation is nothing we have planned. There is no planned estimation that we have planned yet, and the to do is nothing because we have not planned it. We just have created the blank sprint that we'll be working on, and the current state is planning. Now the next step we'll do is we'll need to see whether the capacity is already updated. If you can update the capacity before sprint planning, it's good. If not, we need to update it here now. So we'll go to track and team status, where yes, so here we can see a list of all the team members that we talked about their capacity, what exactly that will be, and let's update the capacity. I am seeing that none of these team member have capacity defined for any sprint. So right now what you need to do is you need to select sprint 2 here, because you are updating a capacity for that particular sprint, and you need to click on this icon. It will say what's your capacity. So based on our assumption, we'll be adding that capacity. For Alex it was, for an example, 46.5. for Amit it was again 46.5, and in this way I'll be updating all the capacity that we already assumed. Yes, so we have updated the capacity that were in our assumption. So these two resources were part of the team member, but they are not working. So I'll be updating 0 for these two team member, those are not working. In Rally, it doesn't give you the provisions to break down your capacity into multiple areas, like what was the default capacity, what was the vacation time, what was the deduction time, or any focus factor. But we already did that in our Excel, and we know this is the capacity. Now we can start planning our story. And in between, what we'll be doing is we'll refer this capacity area to see who has how many hours of work. So we'll come to that area very soon. Let's open. What I will be doing is, instead of doing it in the same page, I will open another page, and from there I will be working. So I am opening this in a new tab. It's called team planning. Right here. So this team planning is help you do a sprint planning and release planning both. So on the left hand side it shows your backlog item, and I am scheduling all the product backlog item. Those are currently unscheduled, so you can actually make a filter out of that. I am saying, okay, show me all the stories, those are unscheduled as of now, and here it shows me all this sprint. Okay, so this sprint planning works on the basis of release. How what are the release you have, and within release you may have multiple sprints. As of now, this sprint 1 was under release 1, and if you see, the release have a start date and end date. We can create one more release where we are planning to deploy this sprint. So you can do every sprint one release, or multiple sprint in one release. So quickly go back to our time boxes, and we'll create one release here. So instead of iteration, I will say release, and within this release I will be making, let's say, a new release. Let's add with details from here, and I'm saying release 2, and I will give a release start date, for an example, let's say August, and I'm ending it and for an example October somewhere end. And this release is still let's make it as active, and plan velocity I'm not adding anything, I'll be just adding it, save and close. So we have two releases now. This release is already done, I will mark it as accepted, and our active release is this one. release 2. Okay, so release is done. I'll go back to our planning. So we will go to team planning, and in team planning we'll see if I select release 2, the sprint 2 is already appearing here. It's automatically calculate the release duration, what is the release duration and what are the sprints falls in between that release duration, so it shows over there. So let's assume this is the first story we want to pick, and we know, okay, this is all estimated. Now we can move this story directly to this sprint. Now one story is added, no work item exists for this iteration. Why? Because we dropped it somewhere else. We will be dropping it here, and one story is now defined here, but still it's saying it doesn't have any task defined. Create task, we need to create tasks. So here you can see that story related details. So this is a very good way of doing planning. So this is your backlog, this is your sprint backlog, and this is the selected story details. At this point of time we'll be just creating task. So there is no task created. What we'll be doing is we quickly create task and start assigning to the assignees. Okay, so I'll click on add new. So for an example, let me give a task name is development, create. I'll do testing, create, analysis. So this is just for your example. Now all the task has to have an owner whom we are assigning it to. So if we select for this one example Alex, and for this one let's select Amit, and for this one let's select Jason. So we already have created, but we still have not estimated the estimated hours, how much time it will be taking. We'll estimate for an example, let's say this one is development, let's make it as 10 hours. Testing, you can make it for 4 hours for an example, and this is your analysis, you can say 2 hours. So now what is this estimate of this task? So estimate is when you create a task for the first time, you need to give an estimate that is used to be the same, and at the time when you are actually completing your task you need to mention something as actual. So it says how much you estimated and how much you actually spent to measure your estimation accuracy. This to do is automatically keep on changing every day. You need to change the to do every day. There are a few other ALM tools to updating the to do separately. In Rally you just need to change it manually every day, whatever the task you have, but that facility you have, it's very easy to do. Now we are done with creating one task, and I'll click on return to previous view, and it says okay, this is one story we had, and this is already have some task. The first story doesn't have any task. So if you click here it says 3, that means it has 3 tasks. And there are also different options you can associate with one story. If there is any dependencies or children's, you have any child stories, if you have any test cases you can attach it, if you want to make any comments you can do it. And now similarly there is US 10. I will be adding few tasks for this one, and I will be creating add new for an example analysis. So I am doing it randomly. When you will be doing it, all team members needs to collaboratively give their input, and I'll talk about that. Let me just create this task quickly. Analysis, development, and let's say testing. So now we have created a task for this story, list of tasks, and we'll be adding few random hours. These hours has to come from the assignee whom we are assigning to. So before doing that, we need to assign this story. So I am randomly picking up here for this example. You will be picking up based on your collaborative discussion, who will be working on that, who have how many capacity available. So Peter was not part of this team, so I am changing it. And this one, let's mark it to again Mark. And Jason, I don't need you here. Okay. So and let's give the task development, let's say it's a 12 hours of work. And see one thing, if I actually estimate 4 here, it should automatically change the to do. And the code review I say 1. So normally at the time of creation, you if you enter on the estimate, the to do will automatically change, because that is how much is remaining. Okay, so we are done with creation of this task. There are 2 stories we already have planned for the sprint 2 from our product backlog, with having 5 and 3 as a story point estimation, and we have some task. We will look into the detailed task sometime later. Just quickly have a look on how much the capacity that we had planned is currently showing. So we'll go on track, and I'll open it in a different screen, so we can refer back to come back to this page once again. And this is still opening. Yes, so now you can actually see this estimated hours, and the to do is now started appearing for this resource, because we have assigned few tasks, and you can actually see what are the tasks we have assigned to these resource or these team members. So this is your user story, and what are the user stories, what is the task ID, and those tasks state what was the hours it was. So it gives you a real data. So you need to keep on working on sprint planning and assigning tasks to individuals, or individual can take tasks to themselves until they have these hours not more than 40. So what it means to say, if you have 46.5 hours, you should not estimate more than that. So your estimation should be less than or equal to 46.5 hours. So for every resource, once we'll be having this allocation of task meeting the total capacity, will say okay, now we are done with our capacity planning, will not be able to commit any more stories. Now this assignation of task, right now you saw how we do it. In practical situation, there are many kind of teams there. Sometimes there are distributed teams are allocated in different places. Sometimes the co-located team sitting in one meeting room, everyone have a laptop, and everyone once how they do it, if everyone have a laptop, so they pick, okay, this is the story, let's create some task. So what this is, okay, everyone open this story and start creating the task. So Alex will be creating his own task, assign it to himself. By default, it's assigned to the person who is creating it, and given estimation hours. Once everyone done with creating that task, they can simply say refresh it and move this story back to here. Mapped here, it was 3, and as of now this we have not created any task. The way I said, if everyone create their own task, it will be so fast, you will not be able to realize that we are making too much of time, or we are giving too much of time on sprint planning. And that way product owner will also not get bored, or product owner will not sit idle that the team is creating task and taking time. So if there are 10 team members team, 4 tasks will be required in 1 minute, all the tasks will be there. They update the scrum master will move the story from here and just quickly check, okay, this is the task currently we have, and see how the capacity is looking like, and the capacity looks like this. That's simple. But the area is when it may be possible that everyone doesn't have a laptop in a meeting room, they cannot do it. If it is a distributed team, they are doing it on a phone, they might be in front of a system, even it's a laptop or desktop or any way, they can update it in that way. But if you are most of the people don't have a laptop, they can still manage an Excel. So what they do is they can actually keep everyone just write a story ID and in a notepad, and Scrum Master will just update that value. I'll quickly show you in case you don't all the team member doesn't have a laptop, and update that capacity, how they will be doing it. So let me show you that. Okay, right here, this is one Excel that I have, and I most of the time when I coach a team, they don't have laptop available for each and every team members. I give this Excel sheets to the Scrum Master to update, and every team member, what they do is they have their own notepad, and I am writing my, if I am a developer, I am writing my user story name and the task that I need and how many hours it will be taking. And then everyone updates, okay, this is user story 10. So I will be updating user story 10, and the hours, for an example, we saw that Alex is US for this particular story. If you click on this story, at the I am just referring it for now. When you will be doing it, I'll show you how we will be doing it. So these are the different tasks we have. So what I will be updating is Jason, Alex 12, Tanushree 4, and Mark 1. So Jason 12, Alex 12, Mark 1, Tanushree 4. So I'll update this because this is my reference point. Instead of updating rally at that time, if it is not feasible, I'll keep somewhere the record that I am talking about on that meeting and doing the planning. And in that way, I'll be having this capacity. I already have captured what was their capacity. It shows the graph how many they have occupied. And similarly, we'll be updating all these stories. So let me just quickly update the next story and see how does that comes up. Yes, so I added another story in this Excel, and it shows, okay, these are their capacity, this is committed, and this is available capacity, this is their allocation so far. And the similar way, how exactly we'll be doing is, for an example, the next story, that is US 13, we are committing, and we don't have a laptop for everyone. So ideally, if you want to do everything in the meeting, the Scrum Master will be adding all the tasks for everyone, or whoever have the laptop will be using that laptop. Instead of doing that, if you want to save time, we can simply say, okay, this is Alex, I will be taking 10 hours for this, and Alex is writing that 10 hours for that user story in his notepad. Sorry, Alex doesn't have a laptop, so none of them have a laptop. Only one person, for an example, the Scrum Master, have a laptop. So he's updating everyone, okay, this is Alex, I will be taking 10 hours. I write down my user story number and 10 hours for this task. This is Tanushree, so this is US 13, right? So we are saying, okay, we are talking about US 13, and Tanushree will be taking, let's say, 4 hours, and Tanushree here somewhere on her notepad he's writing, okay, 4 hours I will be taking for US 13, and that I will be doing for analysis. And this is actually a Tanushree's notepad, for an example. Where is it? Merge. Similarly, there will be having one notepad for Alex. So Alex will be saying, okay, Alex will be taking 3 hours. Okay, so, and that he will be taking for Alex will be taking 3 hours for an example development. This is all random values. So this is Alex notepad, this is Tanushree's notepad, and everyone will be having a notepad like that. So if we say, okay, these are only 2 tasks I will be having, I will be moved to the next story, and let's see how what's happened for the next story. So everyone have their notepad ready, and they are writing it. Once the sprint planning is done, we'll verify this Excel. If you are working on this Excel, and then probably update or create the task later on your Rally software, whatever the task you think needs to be created under each story. So let's go to Rally once back, and we'll commit one more story here. So this is user story 16. So instead of update anything on Rally, we says okay, this is the story, and this is what we know, this is the details we have. If you want to look into users US 16, you can actually look into there is not much details here, because these stories were quickly created for the sprint planning purpose. So we are not following a proper invest to create user story. So okay, this is users story 16. We'll go back, everyone is updating. Okay, this is for an example Alex, another team member we can have. Yeah, I just created a few couple notepad kind of area, so I'm making it for Jason for an example. So this, the Scrum Master or the person who is having laptop doesn't need to do this. This is just showing you individuals notepad that they are tracking. So Jason is there, then I can update Amit, and these are the user story they needs to work on. So user story 16 we are talking about, and Amit says I will be taking 13 hours, and at the time Scrum Master or the anyone who is updating on his laptop or within this Excel, Amit is also updating his notepad with this number user story 16. I'll be taking 13 hours for the purpose of development. Then Jason says okay, I will be needing 4 hours for this. I updated this Excel, and Jason at his desk, he is updating his notepad. He is updating okay, user story 16, I have 4 hours of work for testing. Then Tanushree also want to add some tasks, because mutually they decided okay, this is something Tanushree needs to do, so I added 4 more hours here, and says okay, this is user story 16, and this will be taking this much of hour and maybe for analysis. So in this way, if you complete all the task, so Alex also says I need 10 hours of pure development work. So he will be updating US 16, 10 hours and development. So everyone have their own notepad of whatever the tasks they are committing. So right now that commitment is capturing in Excel. If you are not capturing within Rally, so you can do either way. If you have accessible to Rally everyone, it's better. If you don't have, then probably you can do another way to do it. Now this way I will be capturing all the tasks, and later I will create those tasks. Everyone will go to their desk and see okay, if this is Alex, he will browse 2 stories and create 2 hours of task for development for US 13 and 10 hours of work for US 16 for development. Similarly, Jason will open that and open the Rally, browse US 16 and create 1 task for testing 4. So this is how we'll be committing our task and check what's the capacity. So this Excel shows if someone have committed more than what exactly their capacity is. So for an example, if I am giving 56, it will be quickly turn red here. So it says okay, you are over committing. And similarly in Rally also you will be able to see if your commitment is more than this, then it will be showing, it give you alert you that whatever your capacity is, your commitment is more than that. Let's see how does that work. So quickly, instead of this one, if I say this person's capacity was 20, so it will be show you in red that your allocation is 110%. So we need to keep it 46.5. Now it is green. So this is green. So once everyone updated their task, you can verify, okay, how much allocations we have, 5%, 8%, 47%. And similarly on that Excel also you can actually see how they are occupying. So if it is reached to the end and it's showing red here, that means you are over allocated. This is an individual notepad that they are managing, and in this way they will able to complete all the task and commit move all the stories. Let's assume that we already have the task, we are just committing the stories. I am moving couple of stories here. Okay, now one thing you need to remember that whatever the stories we are moving, we are assuming those are groomed and estimated. If any stories that product owner decide, okay, I want this story in this particular sprint, so this story is not groomed. We need to first groom this story, and then we see whether it's meeting our definition of ready. If it is meeting our definition of ready, we are good to go for a planning poker to estimate his story point. We'll do that. To estimate a story point, once you are done, this plan estimation is your story point area. Task estimation is the total of task for that particular story, sum is here. So and then probably if you can think, okay, we are done, we know we did our planning poker. So you are doing that planning poker and everything within that sprint planning meeting. For any stories those were not groomed, so we said this is a 5 story pointer story, and we are good to go. Once you will enter that 5 story pointers, you check there is a acceptance criteria there, this story doesn't have, but you need to check as per your definition of ready. Now I'll say, okay, I am marking it, this story is to define, so that means it's now ready to accept. And at the same time you can actually create task, or on the similar different fashion that I talked on, how you will be capturing the task hours in Excel. That way you also can do and mark this story as sprint 2 and say done. So you see that story will be now comes here. So this US 27 is now here. So this is the way you will be capturing and making your sprint ready. So there is a, unlike Jira, this doesn't have any start date, start button. So the day whatever the sprint start dates you have mentioned, it will be start on that day. So this is ideally your sprint backlog you are seeing, but how you will be able to monitor all the stories, those are particularly for your sprint backlog. I'll tell you quickly. Okay, so this is your backlog. I have all the stories listed down. So backlog is something that you have not planned for any of the sprint. So these are the stories. If you look into this, 17 to 24 are defined but still visible here, because these 17 to 24 were defined but not planned for your sprint. To get what exactly your sprint backlog is, you can actually the best way I do is I create a quick report, and that is actually very interactive report. I say, okay, sprint backlog, and I say share with all project, I don't mind, and based on iteration how do you want to filter that, save and close. It will ask for what you want to show. So I'll be create, how do you want to have the layout. I'll be having a layout like the full screen, and then I will select, I want to show custom list, and custom list at this app. So it asks what do you want to see on the custom list. So I say, okay, show me only the user stories, and save. So this is your sprint backlog ready. It's on sprint 2 that we have already selected. It shows all the sprints, and you can see what are the stories you have. It also have a arrow where if you click, it shows all the tasks that you have, and it shows how it is going. So this is your sprint backlog, and you can actually start working on. So these hours you can actually edit this task for in any time and start working on that. So task estimation was that, to do, you can update it here, and who is the owner. So this task, this is a task label and this is a story label. So that way you can actually have your sprint backlog ready. So you remember we talked about there are two outcomes from our sprint planning. One is sprint backlog, this is what, and the another one is sprint goal. So each and every sprint is to have a sprint goal, and that is the first. When you do a sprint planning, the first half of your sprint planning is defining the sprint goal. So sprint goal, once you have decided, so that's a negotiation the team does with the product owner and finalize, okay, for this particular sprint this is our goal. And once you look into your time boxes, this is the we need to select iteration, and then you click on sprint. If you edit it, so you can have your theme or goal written here. So I can say sprint goal line 1, sprint goal line 2. If you really want to understand about what exactly the sprint goal is, what is the benefit and how we develop it, please watch another video that I have talked about understanding sprint planning. Over there I have one sections particularly for sprint goal. I am saving save and close. So now your sprint goal is defined, and let's see how my sprint backlog looks like. So what we'll be doing is to get your Scrum board, the best way, click a new. So this is a Scrum board I had tried. I'll show you to create a new Scrum board, how the steps, what you will be doing. You can say my Scrum board. So this creation of report is very much to individual. If you don't have a admin rights, you will not be able to share with everyone. But if you have admin rights, so admin, normally whoever the admin of Rally, they create this kind of report and shared with everyone, so you may get this report by default. So I am saying, okay, let's make a reports that will be a board and give me a full page layout, where I will be selecting a board that will be my custom board. And custom board, you say these are the different states I have. I will say add this app. Now I have my Scrum board ready. I will be customizing because whatever is in backlog I don't need it, and we can move the stories from here to this area. So in this board you see there are options for creating new. If you click on new, it says do you want to create a new task or new defects, new test cases, and you can actually select take different actions what you want to do from each story card. This is your check boxes, and this is your block state. So I'll cover the entire board, how we'll be configuring, how we'll be doing on our next video, where I'll be talking about daily Scrum and how you will be working on that. So before doing that, I'll be covering another area or another sections to configuring this board. So we need to have configure these columns. We need to show our task items inside this board, and we'll work on that. I think for the main purpose of understanding sprint planning, to make our sprint goal and to make the sprint backlog within Rally, we are clear so far. So that's how we'll be able to complete the sprint planning. But a few notes that I want to add here: if the stories are not groomed, that we says we need to do the grooming estimation once again within sprint planning. If you are doing a velocity based capacity, that will be a different area of discussion when how you do it. If you know, because I never suggest to do your sprint planning on the basis of velocity. Story points is good for even individual story sizing, but when you actually doing a capacity planning, it has to be on hours, so that you can measure how many vacations you had, how many team members you have, and many other areas to get the real hours available and the task hours is needed and match that. Again, if you want to know more about sprint planning, watch this video in YouTube. I will add that link on the description area. And also, if you want to read more about, just go to agiledigest.com and you will see that menu item to read more details about sprint planning. I hope you like this video. If you want to see more video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you once again in our next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.